Hi there, this is Christine Richards, and I'm the head of research and content strategy here at Z Prime. And we're really excited to have with us Kyle Seymour, president of SNC Electric. And we are just going to take some time to talk a little bit more about microgrids.
Okay, great.
So now we had some time to talk here at the ETS event about microgrids and really what's next with microgrids. I mean, for you, how are microgrids really evolving as a strategic focus for SNC Electric?
Well, sure. Microgrids have been around for a long time, and SNC has been involved in microgrids for a long time. And they have historically, they've been focused on critical loads that just couldn't be without power for any length of time. But a number of things have been changing in recent years that have started to broaden the attractiveness of microgrids. One of those is that digitization is really causing people to be less tolerant about power outages. You know, with gadgets like cell phones and laptops and internet service, those are all things dependent on electricity. And people who use them have become dependent on them and have become on electricity as well. And so their tolerance for an outage of any length, even momentary, has really gotten lower. The second area is in terms of, in the last few years, there have been a number of critical severe storms that have really raised the awareness level about the limitations of a 20th century grid, which we're trying to use to, to service those improving demands that people have. And the third thing is that the cost of distributed generation, renewables or natural gas, has steadily been coming down. And so if you take the combination of those three things, it allows you now to construct microgrids that can solve those demands in a more cost-effective way. And it's so broadening the scope of interest in microgrids.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there are a lot of opportunities within the space, as you mentioned. And it seems like there are a lot of different components that also have to, that come into play and influence the rise of microgrids. Right. So could you talk a little bit about the role of distributed generation and distributed storage and how that's influencing the rise of microgrids?
Sure. Well, distributed generation there's always been a cost gap between small scale generation, which is used for distributed generation, and what you could buy power from the main grid. And what's happened in recent years is that cost gap has diminished because of the lowering cost of natural gas and lowering cost of renewables. And because that gap is diminishing, it's allowing people to use generation at small scale in a distributed way, and they get the benefits of having generation close to where the demand is. And that's always been a way to improve reliability, but it's always been costly. Yeah. So with that cost gap changing, the reliability improvement that you can get from local generation is really sparking the interest in distributed generation and microgrids, because it's a key part of that.
I mean, it seems like things are really moving beyond just that buzz to, yeah, there's this real value that can come from microgrids and better working with distributed generation as well as distributed storage. Now, as we get more distributed, there's definitely that question of, what is the role of utilities, which have been the traditional, energy providers, versus, commercial industrial customers or public-private partnerships. Mm-hmm. I mean, what does that really look like, and what role do utilities play?
Well, many people, when they think about microgrids, they think it's an either or. It's I'm going to generate by myself, or I'm going to be on the grid as a choice. But in fact, the utility, there's always going to be an advantage to connect to the main grid. Even if you're generating much of your own needs, there's going to be that advantage because it's a broad resource of an energy market that you can and should participate in, either as a buyer or as a seller of energy. And the utility is the conduit into that broad market for energy. And the more people who are generators, participants in that grid, the more complicated the distribution grid is going to become. And that means that not only is a utility a conduit, but they're a critical part of making that a stable marketplace. And so the issues they'll run into are the stability of the grid and the voltage profiles and all those things. And the distribution utility is the critical player in making all of that work for the participants.
So in some cases, I mean, it may be that utilities don't own all the assets, or I mean, there really are some different partnerships.
Right. Well, that's where the public partnership opportunities are coming in. And what you see is a number of utilities that are working with their customers and with their regulators and with other third parties to try to put these arrangements together in a way that can work for the needs of the power user and also allow the utility to participate and play their role as the conduit into the broader grid.
So what are your recommendations for utilities to get involved in the microgrid space? And what are some of the top things they should be doing?
My biggest advice is don't see a microgrid as the enemy. Yeah. See it as an opportunity. See it as a way to go work with your customers on solving their needs in a way that you can work within the rules or within the laws of your particular jurisdiction, but put together a solution that allows both you and your customer to participate in that. And that will help you become a better administrator of that grid over time.
Excellent advice. Well, thanks for joining us, Kyle.
Certainly. Thanks very much, Christine. It's been a pleasure.